All right, welcome to a podcast that's so new it doesn't have a name I like yet. I might call it Why, How, Wow, but I think that's stupid. My name is Brian Carter, and we're going to be exploring the research, science, and evidence behind the questions that matter. Whether we're diving into tech, health, neuropsych, or personal development, my goal is really simple, just to give you insights that you can actually use with a touch of skepticism, maybe a laugh or two. Let's see where the research takes us today. Okay, so I've got several questions I want to explore. We're going to pick our topic right now. Can humans change their habits? What's tech doing to people? Does biohacking actually work? I don't even know what biohacking really is, to be honest. How important is sleep really? I think it's pretty important, but we'll find out. What parts of personal development can AI help with? What is motivation? How do you get more out of it? That's pretty fascinating because there's a lot of things that motivate people. Complex topic. And what can we do with neuroplasticity to improve our lives? Let's see. I'm interested in what humans can do to change their habits just because I've never been very successful at it myself. Maybe that's because I have ADHD or something. Or maybe human beings just like the idea of habits and changing their habits, but are not really good at it. So it'd be interesting to explore that. The way we're going to do this kind of thing is, so for example, we'll start with Perplexity, start with Scite. These are some AI tools that we're going to use to find info and get leads on where we're going to go to get the research, etc. Let's do this. What is the research on can humans actually change their habits? I'm going to run that there, and I'm going to go over here to Scite and log in. This will show you my email. Yes, it does exist. Scite has a login issue because you can log in with Google, but sometimes it doesn't work right away. So if you ever want to reach out to me, now you know my email address is brian@briancartergroup.com. If you have any questions that you would like to see in the show, you can also put them in the comments here on YouTube, but this will also be on Spotify. We don't have a website yet because really just want to start and see how I feel about it, see how it evolves, and then I figure more will be revealed. All right, so we're going to go to the assistant here in Scite and look at that. There are some things we want to change, though, in Scite. Like I've noticed that we'll come back and do that. We need to search. It defaults to very few publications. To me, like I don't want to, and I don't understand why I would let the assistant decide whether to use references or not. We always want references. That's what Scite's all about. But anyway, cool. All right, so let's go back over here. Now the thing about Perplexity is that sometimes we'll get here's the National Institutes of Health, these research. Sometimes we'll get some other type of site which may or may not be research. Yeah, that's research. APA is going to be more of a secondary source. Here's an article, right? Habit formation. Can we change habits? On average, it takes 66 days to form a new habit, but it could be from 15 to 254 days. Let's look at those sources. This is an article. Part of this whole research thing is, and here's a plugin that I like because we don't want all these pop-ups. Very annoying. So this is a plugin I like called Reader View. Okay, we're going all the way back to 1911. Okay, so they are looking at research, but that's good. Here, we change habits. This is very recent. One thing you want to know about research too on various questions is that reviews can be better than individual studies, because reviews will look at sometimes hundreds of studies and think about how credible each one is, and then put it all together into an analysis of what we know about the topic. So let's go back over to Scite. And what I want to do actually is maybe just asking about reviews. I've made the change so that we look at more sources, right? And if you haven't seen this before, I'm not going to do this in every episode, but I do want you to see how Scite works. It's cool. I'm going to reload and just say Make sure our settings are still there. Okay. Particularly focus on reviews. Okay. So, generating a search strategy. I don't know what the first 3 steps were. Running searches, cool. Then ranking 193 results. It does a little bit. See, it narrowed it down to 90. So it eliminates the ones that it doesn't think are as credible. And that's usually, as far as I understand it, based on how many other papers will cite that paper. The idea being, if it's good, there's a consensus that it's accurate and it gets quoted in other studies later on. Okay. So we're talking, and this is going to switch on us once it's done, but it'll be pretty much the same. Okay, there we go. It's done. So we got some studies here that are fairly new. Fritz, Barada, Gardner, and others. Okay. A scoping review highlights the effectiveness of various interventions aimed at changing health-related habits. Self-efficacy is a crucial psychological component. What is self-efficacy? This is very important, right? And this is part of how we understand research is self-efficacy. Cannot ignore terms you don't know, and the brain tends to turn off after it's seen too many words it doesn't know, so we have to learn. The ability to successfully perform specific tasks or achieve particular goals. Self-efficacy just means your effectiveness. Individuals' belief in their ability to control their motivation, behavior, and social. That's interesting. So maybe you can't change habits if you don't believe you can change habits. That makes sense. You would give up, right? Successfully performing tasks. These are things that build self-efficacy. So successful performance, performing tasks, observing others succeed, social persuasion. So we all believe that we can change our habits, and we've seen other people change their habits, and we've changed our habits. We're more likely to be able to change our habits. That seems very recursive, or tautological, you might say. Which means self-fulfilling prophecy, basically. Which is interesting. So the corollary question is, how much of a part does belief play in success? This may be a good future topic. Let's put that one in there. Self-efficacy. It's pretty fascinating, right? Goal setting. Okay, so if you're very self-efficacious, you'll set higher goals for yourself. Probably because you're effective enough to believe you can reach them. And if you haven't had mastery experiences, you're not going to believe you can achieve it, and you're not going to set higher goals. Effort and persistence. Those with strong self-efficacy may apply more effort and persist longer when facing challenges. Greater resilience. And what else? So self-efficacy can be applied to health psychology, self-management of diseases, smoking cessation, etc. That's habits. Education plays a crucial role in student motivation, learning, and achievement in education. Career development affects, it seems like it would affect everything, right? If you believe you can do shit because you've been able to do shit in the past. What kind of shit can you do? I can't really do any shit. Okay, well, you're not going to be able to change your habits. So we're back to self-efficacy. Individuals with higher self-efficacy are more likely to sustain changes in physical activity and dietary behaviors. To develop habit-based health behavior change interventions, Gardner proposed a framework emphasizing the importance of understanding the mechanisms behind habit formation. Yeah, brilliant. And the need for longer follow-up periods to assess sustainability of the changes. All right. Changes in lifestyle habits during stressful periods like COVID-19 can lead to increased changes. Okay, so maybe you changed your lifestyle in a bad way, which can lead to psychological distress, and in turn affects the ability to change habits. So we cannot be in psychological distress. We have to believe in ourselves. Pandemic lifestyle changes, negative ones, were associated with higher levels of psychological distress. Blah, blah, blah. Sometimes these seem so obvious, right? Automaticity. The concept of automaticity in habit formation is crucial for understanding how habits can be changed. What is automaticity? You scientists in your words. You guys. Okay, let's go back to Perplexity and say, what is automaticity? Especially in habit changing. See what we get there. All right. Automaticity is the ability to perform actions or behaviors without conscious thought or effort. Like when you're driving and you forgot you were driving for a while, right? So some automatic behaviors can be executed with minimal cognitive resources, freeing up mental capacity for other tasks, unconscious processing. Like right now, my heart is still beating even though I'm not making it due to efficiency. Is created by automaticity, creating quick and effortless performance of actions. I would assume athletes get a lot of this because they've practiced a lot of movements many times. And it seems like some athletes are just gifted naturally. Like I look at Steph Curry, and I think he's got a great cerebellum, which is the part of the brain that deals with coordination. Like his ability to adjust and hit a shot falling down. Kobe did that a lot too. So that's part of automaticity too, I would think, to a degree, right? Because sometimes overthinking in athletic situations can cause you to fail. Maybe you're using the wrong part of your brain at that point in time for the task. Automatic behaviors are often triggered by specific environmental cues or contexts. The goal is to develop, in forming new habits, the goal is to develop automaticity so that the desired behavior becomes effortless and self-sustaining. Okay, so we're on autopilot sometimes in a good or a bad way. Consistent repetition of a behavior in a stable context strengthens the neural pathways. So repetitions, like I said, with practice, with athletes, it increases your, automaticity is such a weird word. I would just say like autopilot is probably better. Context stability. So performing a behavior in the same context consistently helps to establish yes, right? So if you always eat this bad food when you're in the kitchen or at this time of day or when the family's around for the holidays, you're more likely to do it unconsciously, and that is a bad habit. It really, to me, if you think about it, automaticity sounds like it is a habit. So what's the difference between this autopilot thing and habits? I don't know if there is one. Simplification. Simpler behaviors tend to become automatic more quickly than complex ones. It takes about 66 days for a behavior to become automatic. To disrupt old habits, we might need to disrupt the automatic cue response associations, altering environmental triggers or contexts. That's interesting because I remember I had some friends in AA and they said Alcoholics Anonymous, and one of the things they said is that you have to change everything. You have to change your playgrounds, playmates, playthings, something like that. So that can make it seem like a cult, but if you keep hanging around all the other people you drank with and all these other places that you drank, hard to change that habit. And that is one of the most difficult habits, probably addiction, for anybody to change. Building new habits, so replacing bad habits with good ones. Like when I quit smoking, it was good to spend time outside, but not where I would have gone outside and smoked, but hiking, other things like that. And thinking of things that you can do, like some people will chew gum when they feel like having a cigarette, and also nicotine gum makes a lot of sense as well, because at least you're moving the getting of nicotine away from the habit of smoking, right? That's smart. Leveraging context, using existing routines or environmental cues to trigger new behaviors. Patience and persistence. It develops gradually, so that again sounds like practice. You have to practice the new habit consciously and persistently. Okay, so that's automaticity. Let's go back over to Scite. So we got self-efficacy, which means belief that you can do something, sense of mastery. We've got automaticity. We've got don't get into psychological distress. Let's see. Where else are we? We talked about, yes, Perplexity went through some of this stuff already for us. Environmental cues, good and bad, can affect habits. Great. Okay, so we've got, generally speaking, it looks like humans can change their habits. And we've talked about a few ways that we can make that happen. Let's ask, what are some specific studies where habits were changed and the success rate of people in each study? In this case, I'm just curious what Perplexity will come up with. Sometimes with them you want to do a new thread, because if you don't, it'll just search the existing documents it pulled up instead of new ones. And then it'll be like, that answer's not in the documents. I'm like, yeah, you didn't have to stick with those documents. You could have gotten new ones. Okay. See, I love how Scite is looking at 100 different possible sources, and typically Perplexity is only gonna, wow, that one's gonna, it's really looking through a lot of stuff. It's looking through a lot of studies right now. Perplexity is. Anyway, Perplexity may only come up with 10 sources, right? So if we look at this, 14 sources that Perplexity went through, and again, some of them are studies, some are articles that are probably based on studies. And then with our Scite answer, it actually gave us 10 specific examples. We'll go through some of those. All right, so Perplexity gave us a table of studies with the name of the study, the method of change, success rate. We only got the success rate for one of the four, which was 31%. Well, let's see if there's any others. This tends to happen, like the ability of, this is research augmented generation. Is it? Okay, now I'm forgetting what RAG is. But anyway, it goes out online and finds sources and then processes those instead of just working on its existing gigantic training on 1 billion documents like maybe ChatGPT would. This wants to go specifically out and find those specific things and talk about those things specifically. With Scite, we'll look through that. And what's interesting that the success rates are not quantified. That's very strange to me. There's one here, 2020, dietary habits and sleep quality among children during the COVID-19 pandemic. Approximately 73.5% of children experienced changes in their dietary habits, indicating a significant impact of the pandemic on eating behaviors. Well, we do know, too, part of that factor is that there's a percentage of children that only eat at school, or they eat a lot of their nutrition at school. Not going to school. But I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so very few of these have success rates in them. There's one in 2024, a micro randomized trial to understand and promote habit formation and physical activity. 29% of participants successfully formed a new habit. That is really interesting to me, because as someone who's dealt with, for example, like a lot of the way that I think about success and how to get better results in life or anything comes from the digital advertising that I've done since 2004. So I spent 20 years, like, if we do this, how many leads do we get, or how many clients or clicks or whatever, what's the cost for each, what's the conversion rate, how successful are we? You always have success metrics. And so it's very strange to me when you're looking into how habits work and how to change them that we're not getting success rates. It's possible that they're in the studies and we're not pulling them out effectively. So let's just take a look at one that didn't have a success rate, supposedly. This one is from 2015, Previous Experiences and Emotional Baggage as Barriers to Lifestyle Change, a qualitative study of Norwegian Healthy Life Center participants. Let's see. These are targeted to people with lifestyle issues. Do you have a lifestyle issue? I might have a lifestyle. I don't know what that is. What is a lifestyle issue? Being stuck in old habits, being burdened with emotional baggage from previous negative experiences. That's interesting stuff. A lot of us could benefit from changing old habits and getting rid of emotional baggage from negative experiences. It's a long study. Let's look at results. So with stuck in old habits, I don't know, this may have just been, it's a qualitative study, so they may have just been looking for information that could be used in a future study. Yeah, they're just trying to get a sense of what the landscape was. So there wasn't really any particular test or system for changing habits. Here's one that was about recycling behaviors, and there were some increases in recycling behaviors at the workplace. This is 2017, and sustainability, the journal is called Sustainability. Comprehensive Action Determination Model. No idea what that is. Okay. 1,269 students and employees, 3-month pilot period. Waste separation at work must go beyond technical aspects to include various key elements of sustainability to ensure success. Wow. It's so funny sometimes the way that they'll use jargon for basic things. Let's see. Results. Good fit of the model. What? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ask Perplexity what this frickin' study says. Can you give me an idea what this study concluded would work for habit change? Just for context here, what we're doing right now is assuming, we're not assuming people can change their habits. And we need to also investigate what other things could be happening. And when you want to change, basically you want to change bad behaviors into good ones. The question is, how else could we do that? Is there a different paradigm than habits? We'll have to ask that as well. I am going to make a note of that. Is there another paradigm for improving behavior and lifestyle without talking about habits? Okay, so let's first look at Perplexity is giving a little more detail on this study. Social norms have a significant impact, so it's hard to change your habits when everybody else is doing their thing. So are you a lemming? Are you going to jump off the cliff? Behavioral control of believing you can control your ability to recycle effectively. Again, we're back to self-efficacy. Habits do play a crucial role. Existing habits, okay. Interventions should focus on breaking old habits and forming new ones. Can we just habits definition real quick? A settled tendency or regular practice, especially one that's hard to give up. We stay together out of habit, or what a nun wears. Regular tendency or practice. It's just grooved in autopilot stuff. Personal norms have a strong influence on intentions to recycle, fostering a sense of personal responsibility. Okay, so your values and society's values and believing you can change your habits. Attitudes. I don't know how that's different from values, and their effect was not as strong. Yeah, I don't know what. Okay. I don't care what attitudes are. I have a bad attitude about that. Creating a strong social norm around recycling. Okay. Targeting existing habits, blah, blah, blah. Interesting. Not particularly insightful. Let's ask this other question I just asked. We're really looking for some kind of breakthrough insight here on changing human behavior. Other paradigms besides habits for improving behavior and lifestyle include a team-centered approach. We work together to do it's that deals with the peer thing. So we're all going to change our habits together, guys. Let's get together. And actually, there you think about it. I just mentioned Alcoholics Anonymous earlier. These 12-step programs do have kind of peer pressure or support for this. When I went to Toastmasters for speaking originally, back in the year 2000, La Jolla, San Diego, That's a support group for people who want to get better at speaking. Team-centered. Adaptive decision-making framework is another one. What is that? It integrates multiple theories to address lifestyle behavior change in the digital age. Individual daily decisions. That's interesting. I don't really understand what that is from the summary. I'm looking at the actual paper for that one. Let's go down to review, discussion, mapping digital intervention techniques to the framework. With some of this stuff, you really just want to find a table that will summarize things. But 2-level. Let's look at discussion. I don't know. Okay. Sometimes that's the problem with this podcast potentially, is that sometimes you really have to take 5 or 10 minutes at least to read specifics and figure out what it's saying, but I'm not really getting anything out of that one. I guess it's just a framework for dealing with the complexity of lifestyle behavior change. Biobehavioral intervention framework. Okay. I'm in pain now, you guys. This is considering emotion and neurocognition, both cognitive and psychological mechanisms influence ability to engage in self-management. I believe that wholeheartedly. Process model of behavioral change. Interesting. There's nothing particularly special about looking at them as habits. We're really talking about behavior and how do we change our own behavior. Got it. Okay. Let's see. I'm just curious. Yeah, Perplexity concluded that humans can modify their habits. So that's interesting. I guess, like for me, just seeing how popular, I think in the last 5-10 years, not so much right now, but there were a bunch of books out about changing your habits. And like I said in the beginning, it's not easy to do. And that's why I think I became skeptical about the whole approach, right? But the research here says it's possible. We just I'm gonna pause for a second. So it looks like the key is to make sure you've got a number of things working for you, right? You need to develop self-efficacy. You need to work on automaticity. You need a group of people that supports you. Those seem to be the 3 biggest things in the research that we've looked at here. And we've only spent 31 minutes here looking at it. Probably less with the intro I did. But I think that's a pretty good intro to the question of, can humans actually change their habits? The answer is yes. And we've looked at a few strategies for that. In the future, we could probably look at other things. Maybe just for the heck of it, we'll ask Perplexity, what are some of the newest strategies for habit, behavior, and lifestyle modification that are effective or promising? Just see what the future might be. And personally, I think if I had all the time in the world, one of the things I'd be working on is an AI or LLM based coach, like an assistant that helps you grow. I don't think that's super difficult to do, and people are already working on those kinds of things. So that's an interesting one. There are just a lot of things that we can, we can sabotage our own change, or sometimes it's comforting and also like more efficient, low energy to do the habits we're already in the habit of doing on autopilot. There's probably a good argument that human beings don't really change until it's very painful and you have to change. I think that also goes to, there's an entire issue with like how society's changing and how maybe conservative versus liberal, you've got people who are less or more likely to want to make the changes. So you got this feedback loop in society saying, let's change everything or change radically, and then people saying, no, let's stick to what works or has worked or whatever. Obviously, we're not going to get into that debate, but it's interesting. There probably are similar things that happen in the brain and in the body It's pretty famous too how difficult it is to lose weight and keep it off. So that's another thing to look at in the future. I remember I looked into that when I was writing my first health blog back in 99, 2000, 2001. And there were like 3 redundant biochemical and neuropsychiatric or neuropsychological feedback loops that prevent you from being able to keep the weight off. And I was like, wow, this is really tough. So I'm sure that there are going to be pharmaceutical options, things that make it easier for people to make changes. And yeah, so neuroscience-based approaches, visualization exercises. Yeah, I found that to be, for me, when I quit smoking, I visualized myself as a non-smoker. What does that mean? I spent a lot of time working internally on what is my life going to look like? Who is Brian Carter without smoking, right? So you got visualization. Athletes do that as well. Mindfulness practices. Habit stacking, right? We talked about that a little bit. Link a new habit to an existing one. I need to do squats. So every time I get irritated by a noise, I'm going to stand up and do some squats. Whatever. Things that are automatically happening for you. After dinner, I'm going to take a walk. Type of stuff like that. Optimizing the habit loop. Identifying cues. Yeah, which things make you want to. Like maybe you're having trouble drinking less, but you keep watching TV shows where everybody's always drinking, which kind of normalizes it, right? And you're like, yeah, I should be drinking too. And you're watching Mad Men and you're like, God, I'm so wasted. Wonder how that happened. Let's see. And then identifying cues. We talked about disrupting patterns, replacement behavior. We talked about that. Don't just get rid of a bad thing, but replace it with a good thing. Habit laddering, blah, blah, blah. Consistency over intensity. That's interesting. Yeah, this is interesting because you want to work out, then maybe doing something every day, even if it's 5 minutes some days, is better than only doing super intense workouts irregularly. That's an interesting one. I really like that one. And it's funny, yeah, my personal trainer has gotten me to think about what are some, she calls them movement snacks, and I don't really like the snacks word for some reason, but it's catchy. Movement snacks. I'm just laughing because I think she likes food, because she's always like, oh, this particular, we're going to do some juicy stretches. I'm like, why are they juicy? Like, why does it have to be a food word? Can it just be, we can't talk about lubricating. That's weird. Okay, anyway. So movement snacks should be like, make sure every once in a while during the day, you can do the wall sit, you can do some squats, you can do some push-ups. I'm like, yeah, right? And it would be easier for me to do those things if I tied them to another existing pattern, blah, 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 right? And these are not necessarily new. The guys that have written these habit books, like Charles Duhigg, have talked about these things. He's the only one that comes to mind. I apologize to any other authors. That's just my brain. What else? Habit tracking? I don't know. You can do that. Yeah, apps and wearables are probably easier for that. I think this stuff needs to be automated more. Some people are really good at writing that stuff down, but like I would never do it consistently. So again, like a reason for we need an AI that can monitor stuff, talk to us, even just automating the whole. Let's talk to somebody about the day before we do our day, and then talk to somebody at the end of the day about what we did. Some people do that with friends or their romantic significant others, and some people journal that, but I think for consistency, it'd be really nice if you had an AI, your AI coach would text you in the morning or at night and say, hey, what's your plan for the day? Or what did you do today? What did you learn today? What didn't work? Blah, blah, blah. And then that gets entered in the database, right? So anyway, you may not do it every day, but you're going to do it a heck of a lot more than you would have. So the tracking and learning from that stuff, we talked about not just being around like social support people that support you in your new habit, but also making sure your physical environments don't cue the bad things and maybe actually cue the good things. Maybe I need a little poster that I can see where it shows the movement snacks that I should be doing. This is interesting. Introducing some variability in early stages of habit formation can lead to more robust habits. So different times and contexts for new habits. That's cool because actually I've had to travel so much for keynote speaking that I'm doing these body weight exercises that my personal trainer has taught me. We've just done all these different workouts and she sent me videos. And so I can do a side plank for my, what do you call those? Not the abs, the obliques. I can do burpees. I can do all these different things. And I've done them. I did them in hotels. I did them on my dark retreat. I do them here in the office. That makes sense. That's interesting. The more you do good things in different contexts, the more habit it becomes, right? And the same is true of bad habits. If you're doing your bad habit everywhere and everything, it becomes more central to your life and your identity. All right, adaptive goal setting. Yeah, you have to keep raising the bar. That's the funny thing. I've been injured. I have a tendon injury that we've had to baby some of the stuff I do with the workouts, but that was a major revelation for me. Like someone who at age 51 never really did a lot of workouts and was never really an athlete who did these practices or 2-a-days or any of those things. Learning that if it's not hard every time, it means you went easy and you're going to stop growing, right? Or maybe even go backwards. So it's interesting. There's a certain kind of tiredness that you can get from constantly doing more and more difficult things. You have to rest enough and you have to have what would they call deloading, like a week where you wouldn't do workouts, right? So there also are times where you'll have a cheat day with your diet or just eat completely differently, right? Anyway, that's a whole bunch of stuff about habits. It's a huge topic, obviously, and there are books that are hundreds of pages long on this topic. So we're not going to get into everything, but I think we have explored the topic fairly well. We've talked about a number of different research studies, and that's really the goal of this show. So thanks for joining me. If you found this episode fascinating or maybe just better than the doom scrolling you would have done otherwise on social media, please share this with somebody you think that it might help. If you like this, you want to see more, subscribe, follow, comment, reach out, even send me questions that I can explore in future episodes. Disagree with me, point out how wrong I am or what I screwed up. Happy to look at that stuff. Always want to improve. And if you're looking for a funny keynote speaker or maybe a smarter approach to digital marketing or advertising, reach out to us for that. We do ads on a bunch of different platforms. And then with keynotes, I speak about all kinds of topics from leadership, teamwork, generations, AI, all kinds of stuff. So let's connect. And until next time, please keep asking questions and challenging the answers. Take care.